The sun burned high above the alien city, its red light falling on the massive arena. The crowd was restless, their voices echoing like thunder across the stone walls. Creatures of every shape and size filled the seats, claws tapping, wings beating, eyes glowing with hunger for blood. This was not just sport for them. This was a ritual, a celebration of dominance. At the center of the arena stood a human. He was not armed with shining weapons, nor protected by strong armor. Chains clinked around his wrists and ankles as he was pushed forward. The guards laughed, their scaled faces twisting with cruel smiles. They thought humans were weak, slaves meant for suffering. But inside the humans' eyes burned a quiet fire, one no alien could see. Across from him towered the champion, an alien warrior with skin like iron and teeth sharper than blades. He carried a great spear, its tip glistening with poison. The crowd roared his name again and again, a sound that shook the ground. He had never lost, not once. Every challenger before had bled and fallen within minutes. And today, the people wanted the same. The human was forced to kneel. The weight of the champion's presence pressed on his shoulders. His knees touched the dusty ground. His head bowed low. The announcer's voice rang out across the arena. The human bows to the killing blow. The champion raised his spear high into the sky. The sun flashed against the blade, making it shine like a star of death. The alien crowd screamed for blood, their voices joining into one thunderous command. "Strike, strike, strike," they cried. The human closed his eyes. He heard his heart beating like a drum inside his chest. Every second stretched like an eternity. This was the end, he thought. No man could stop a champion like this. But then the silence was broken. A sharp sound cut the air, a hiss swift and deadly. Before the champion's spear could fall, an arrow whistled through the sky. The crowd gasped as the arrow struck. It pierced the champion's chest, sinking deep. The mighty warrior staggered back, his eyes wide with shock. The arena that moments before had been filled with chants now drowned in chaos. The human looked up, his breath caught. He had expected death, but instead he saw the impossible. The champion dropped to one knee, clutching the shaft of the arrow. Blood as dark as oil spilled across the sand. The crowd screamed in panic, some fleeing, some roaring with anger. Guards rushed forward, scanning the arena walls. Where did it come from? Who fired? They shouted. High in the shadows of the arena, a figure stood, a bow still raised in his hands. It was another human, hidden among the alien elites. His eyes burned with determination. He had risked everything for this moment. The arrow was not just wood and steel, it was hope. It was rebellion. The kneeling human could not believe it. For so long, he had thought he was alone, that humans had been broken, scattered, enslaved forever. But here was proof. A human strong enough to strike down a champion. A human clever enough to defy the chains. The champion roared, his voice shaking the stones of the coliseum. He was not dead yet. The arrow had pierced him, but his rage kept him standing. He tore the shaft from his chest, blood spraying across the sand. "Find the archer," he screamed. "Bring me his head." The guards stormed into the stands, but the human archer had already vanished into shadow. He was like a ghost, leaving only whispers behind. The chained prisoner stood slowly, his body trembling with both fear and hope. For the first time since he had been captured, he felt something rise inside him. It was not courage, not yet. It was the knowledge that he was not alone. The crowd's fear grew into chaos. Some shouted for the games to end. Others demanded the human's execution at once. But the prisoner's fate had already changed. The arrow had done more than wound the champion. It had wounded the illusion of alien supremacy. The myth that humans could not fight back had shattered. As the guards dragged the human away, his head turned back toward the arena walls. He knew someone was out there watching, someone who had risked everything to save him. And though the chains still clinked on his wrists, his heart felt lighter, because now, for the first time, he believed the fight was not over. It was only the beginning. The city above the arena was alive with chaos. Alarms rang through the alien towers, red lights flashing like angry stars. Guards stormed through the streets, their armored boots shaking the ground as they searched for the shadow who dared fire an arrow. Every eye looked to the sky, but the mysterious archer was already gone. Hidden inside the twisting alleys, the archer moved like smoke. His cloak blended with the dark walls, his footsteps silent against the stone. No one expected a human to be here, not among the alien nobles. The humans were slaves, chained in the mines, broken in the fields. Yet here he was, walking free, armed with a bow older than most of the empire itself. His name was Kale. Once he had been a soldier, long before the humans lost their war. He had watched his people fall, his cities burn, and his comrades turned into prisoners. But Kale had not broken. He had vanished into the shadows of the alien empire, waiting, learning, planning. For years he studied their ways, their weaknesses, their blind pride. And now he had acted, a single arrow to remind the galaxy that humans still fought back. Far below, the chained prisoner was dragged through iron gates. His body bruised, his breath heavy, but his eyes filled with a new fire. He did not know Kale's name, but he felt his presence. The arrow had saved his life, and with it, planted a seed of rebellion in his heart. Kale moved deeper into the noble quarter, slipping past guards who rushed toward the arena. He entered a forgotten passage, a tunnel carved in ancient times. Inside, torches burned low, and human faces turned toward him. Dozens of them, hidden away, living in secret beneath the very city of their masters. They looked at Kale with awe. "You fired it," one whispered. Kale nodded, setting his bow down with steady hands. "The arrow was not just for the champion," he said, his voice calm but heavy. "It was for every human who has forgotten what freedom feels like." The humans in hiding murmured, some with fear, some with hope. "You will bring the hunters on us," one elder warned. "They will burn this place. They will kill us all." Kale's eyes did not waver. "They will hunt us whether we hide or not," he answered. But today, every alien in that arena saw something they swore could never happen. They saw their champion bleed. Silence filled the chamber. The prisoners who had lived in darkness too long now felt the spark. It was dangerous, it was impossible, but it was also hope. And hope was more dangerous to the aliens than any weapon. Outside, the alien champion roared from his throne. Though wounded, he lived, his fury greater than his pain. His command shook through the streets. "Find a human archer. Search every shadow. Tear apart every den." The city became a net of guards, but Kale and his hidden kin had already vanished deeper into their secret tunnels. The chained human prisoner, whose name was Eric, was locked in a cold cell far below the arena. But even there, whispers reached him. Guards spoke in anger. Nobles whispered in fear. And Eric realized the truth. This was no accident. A human had struck the first blow in a war no one believed could ever begin again. As the night fell on the alien city, Kale stood at the mouth of a cave, looking out at the stars. He remembered the old days, when humans had walked proudly among the stars before the Empire's chains. He tightened his grip on the bow. "This is only the first arrow," he whispered to himself, "and it will not be the last." The arena still smelled of blood and fire. The alien crowd had scattered, leaving only broken banners and shattered stone behind. But in the dark cells below, the human prisoner Eric sat awake, his wrists raw from chains, his breath shallow, but his mind alive with the memory of the arrow. He could still hear the sound, the sharp whistle through the air, the sudden gasp of thousands, the mighty champion falling to his knees. That single moment replayed again and again in his head. It was not just survival, it was a message. And Eric could not let it die in the silence of this cell. The guards believed he was broken. They laughed outside his cage, their voices echoing through the tunnels. "Tomorrow the human will be executed. No champion is shamed without revenge," they said. Eric listened quietly, his eyes on the rusted lock that held him. He knew the execution would come, but so would the chance to fight. He just needed to be ready. Far above, Kale moved through the secret tunnels with his small band of hidden humans. The arrow had given them more than courage. It had given them a path. For years they had lived in shadows, silent, invisible, afraid to act. Now they whispered plans. "We cannot leave him," one woman said. "He is proof that humans can fight again." Kale nodded, his face hard. "Eric must live," he said, "and if he does, others will rise with him." As night deepened, the alien guards prepared the city for lockdown. Heavy gates closed over the streets, towers lit with blue fire to expose every corner. The champion himself ordered the search, his voice booming with fury. But in their arrogance, the aliens underestimated the humans they called slaves. They searched the noble halls, the markets, the towers, but they never thought to look below in the forgotten tunnels under their own feet. Near midnight, Kale and two others reached the prison levels. They wore stolen cloaks, their steps confident. The alien guards at the entrance barely looked up before the human struck. Silent knives cut the air, and the guards fell before they could cry out. Kale's eyes scanned the rows of cells until he found him. Eric, chained and beaten, but still alive. The moment their eyes met, Eric understood. This was not a rescue for one man. It was the beginning of something greater. Kale broke the lock with a blade, and the chains fell with a heavy clang. Eric stood slowly, his body weak, but his spirit burning. "You fired the arrow," Eric whispered. Kale only gave a small nod. "There will be more arrows," he said, handing him a stolen blade. "But now we run." The alarm soon rang through the prison. The silence shattered by the screams of alien guards discovering fallen comrades. Torches flared, horns blew, boots thundered through the halls. Kale and his group ran, leading Eric through twisting corridors. Every corner brought danger, every shadow a chance of death. But together they fought like wolves, quick and ruthless. For the first time in years, Eric swung a weapon with purpose. The sound of steel meeting flesh filled the halls. The guards had numbers, but the humans had something greater, desperation. The escape carried them into the tunnels beneath the city. Echoes of pursuit followed close behind, alien voices shouting, weapons clashing. But the tunnels were old, carved long before the Empire rose. Here, the humans knew the paths better than their hunters. At one narrow passage, Kale stopped. He raised his bow once more and fired into the dark. The arrow struck a hanging chain, and with a roar the ceiling collapsed. Rocks tumbled down, sealing the passage and cutting off the guards. Eric stared at him in awe. "You planned this," he said. Kale shook his head, his expression calm. "No, I only waited for the day we stopped hiding." At last, they reached the hidden cavern, lit by small fires and filled with human faces. Children, elders, and fighters alike turned to see Eric standing among them, free at last. For a long moment, silence held the air. Then a murmur spread, first whispers, then shouts. They freed him. A human struck the champion. "We are not broken." Eric felt the weight of their eyes on him. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was proof. Proof that the chains could be broken. Proof that humans could fight back. As the fires flickered across the cavern walls, Kale raised his voice. "This is not the end of a single battle," he said. "This is the beginning of war." The crowd trembled at the word, some in fear, some in excitement. But deep inside, every one of them knew it was true. The escape had begun, and with it, the long path to freedom. The alien champion did not die. The arrow had pierced his chest, but his rage burned hotter than his wounds. In the healing chambers of the Empire, he stood surrounded by healers, his body covered in scars, his eyes glowing with hate. Every breath he took was fire, every movement a promise of vengeance. His name was Varric, and for years he had been the undefeated symbol of alien strength. No warrior had ever touched him, no enemy had ever made him bleed. But now, One human arrow had done what no army could. It had humiliated him before the entire empire. The crowd had seen him stumble. The people had seen him wounded. And in their eyes, his legend was broken. Varric slammed his fist into the stone wall, the impact cracking it like glass. "Find them," he roared, his voice carrying through the halls of the citadel. "Find the archer. Find the escaped slave. Burn every hole they hide in." The guards bowed low, their fear trembling in every movement. No one dared disobey, because Varric was more than a champion now. He was vengeance given flesh. Across the city, Kale and Eric sat in the hidden cavern. The fires burned low. Faces of frightened humans stared at them. Some were ready to fight. Others were terrified of what was coming. They all knew Varric's fury would not rest. The Empire would send hunters, soldiers, machines. But Kale's voice remained steady. "Varric's anger is his weakness," he said. "He will chase us with everything he has, and in his rage, he will make mistakes." Eric listened, his body still sore from chains. But inside him a fire grew. He remembered the cheers of the crowd when he was forced to kneel. He remembered the silence when the arrow struck. And now he understood. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was a symbol, a spark that could light rebellion. Yet with that spark came danger. If Varric caught him, the Empire would use his death as a warning to all humans. Meanwhile, Varric gathered his war council. Alien generals stood before him, their armor shining, their voices cautious. One dared to speak. "Champion, the humans are scattered. They are nothing. Chasing them will waste resources." Varric's glare silenced him instantly. "Nothing," he growled. "They wounded me. They dared raise their heads against us. And you call them nothing?" His roar shook the chamber. "They're not prey anymore. They are fire, and I will crush it before it spreads." Orders spread across the Empire. Posters of Eric's face appeared on alien streets, painted in chains and blood. The words beneath read, "The Defiant One. Capture alive. Show the galaxy his fall." Patrol ships filled the skies, scanning every shadow, every cave, every starship leaving the ports. The hunt had begun, and Varric himself led it. The champion would not rest until he held Eric's broken body before the crowd. But the humans were not idle. Kale trained Eric and others in secret. Simple weapons became deadly tools in their hands. Every day, they practiced in the tunnels. Every night, they whispered plans of rebellion. Kale's bow became a symbol, and Eric's survival became a story passed in hushed voices. The Empire wanted fear, but they had created something else, belief. One evening, scouts rushed back into the cavern. "The champion rides," they cried. Varric himself marches with soldiers. They searched the lower districts. Panic rippled through the humans, but Kale stood tall. "This was always coming," he said. "He wants us to run. He wants us afraid. But tonight we will show him that humans do not bow again." As night fell, Varric's forces swept through the abandoned ruins on the edge of the city. Fires burned, soldiers shouted, machines scanned the ground. But in the shadows, the humans struck first. Silent arrows from the rooftops, traps hidden in the dust, sudden blades flashing in the dark. The aliens had numbers, but the humans had surprise. Eric himself led the charge with Kale, his chains now replaced by a blade. The battle raged through the ruins, the night alive with fire and steel. From the highest tower, Varric watched. His chest ached from the old wound, but his eyes burned with fury. For the first time in his life, he saw humans not as slaves, but as warriors. And though he swore he would crush them, a thought whispered at the back of his mind. This would not be easy. The champion's revenge had begun, but so had the humans' rebellion. The ruins still smoldered from the night before. Ash drifted through the air like falling snow. Broken alien banners lay trampled in the dust, proof that the humans had struck and lived. For the first time in years, the slaves had made the Empire bleed. But victory came with a price. Kale's band of rebels was hunted across the city, every street watched, every tower filled with soldiers. The Empire could not allow the story to spread. Yet no wall, No soldier, no chain could silence whispers. Across the markets and the mines, humans spoke in hushed voices. They fought back, they escaped. The champion himself was wounded, and in those whispers was fire. Eric stood at the edge of the hidden cavern, looking up through the cracks of the stone roof. Above him, the alien sky glowed with blue shields and patrol ships, each one a predator searching for prey. He gripped the blade Kale had given him. "We cannot stay hidden forever," he said quietly. Kale's sharp eyes turned toward him. "No," Kale answered. "We must take the fight higher." That night the plan was made. Not to defend the tunnels, not to guard the shadows, but to strike where no human had dared in years. The skies. The aliens believed the air was theirs. Their warships patrolled every hour. Their banners flew above the city. But Kale knew their weakness. Ships required fuel, towers required control, and pride blinded their commanders. "They will never expect slaves to take the sky from them," he said. And though fear filled the cavern, the humans nodded. They would fight not just for freedom, but to prove the impossible. The rebels moved under cover of darkness, through sewers, abandoned tunnels, forgotten paths, until they reached the old hangar outside the city walls. It had once been a human port, long before the Empire claimed it. Now it was nothing but ruins, guarded lightly, ignored by the aliens who saw it as useless. But inside lay wreckage, broken ships, shattered engines, wings torn apart. Kale saw more than ruin. He saw opportunity. The humans worked in silence, hands blistered, backs aching, but their hearts alive. Piece by piece they repaired what they could. Scrap turned into armor, broken parts forged into weapons. One ship, small and fragile compared to the Empire's fleet, slowly came alive again. Its engines roared like an old memory, shaking dust from the ceiling. When the fires lit inside its core, the humans cheered. It was not perfect, it was not powerful, but it was theirs. On the night of the assault, the alien sky was calm. Patrol ships glided above the towers, their lights scanning lazily. They expected silence, obedience, chains. What they received was fire. From the old hangar, the human ship roared into the sky, its wings trembling, its hull scarred, but its heart unbroken. Inside, Eric gripped the controls while Kale stood at his side, bow ready. The ship shot upward like a comet, engines screaming. The aliens shouted in alarm, patrol ships turning. "This cannot be," one cried. "Humans cannot fly," another said. But they could. The battle above the city blazed with chaos. Alien ships fired streams of blue fire. The sky lit with explosions. But the human ship darted and weaved. Kale's arrows, tipped with stolen energy cores, shot through the air, striking engines and wings. Eric flew with desperation, every movement guided not by training, but by sheer will. And somehow, against all odds, they survived. One alien ship fell burning into the streets, then another. The city below watched in disbelief as slaves turned hunters. From his fortress tower, Varric saw the sky aflame. His wound throbbed with rage, his claws dug into stone. He had sworn to crush the humans, yet here they were, defying him before his own people. "Bring me their ship," he roared. "Drag it from the sky and show them what true power is." But no order could erase what had already happened. The people of the Empire had seen the impossible. A human ship flying free, a human arrow piercing the skies. And in every whisper that spread, in every frightened glance of the aliens, the fire grew stronger. The humans returned to their cavern battered but alive. Their ship cracked and smoking, but their spirits unbroken. Children touched the scorched metal with wonder. Elders wept at the sight of a human ship breathing again. Eric stood before them, his voice steady though his body trembled. "We are not slaves," he said. "We are not broken, and we will rise higher than they ever believed." Above them, the alien skies glowed with fire. The first battle for freedom had been fought, not on the ground, but in the air, and it was only the beginning. The city burned with tension. Whispers of rebellion spread faster than the Empire could silence them. Every alien had seen the humans rise into the skies, had watched their patrol ships fall in flames. And though the Empire tried to call it a trick, the truth was already planted. Humans were no longer prey. But for Varric, the alien champion, none of this mattered. He cared nothing for whispers, nothing for stories, nothing for politics. All he wanted was vengeance. His pride had been scarred by a single arrow, and pride was the blood of his people. Only one thing could heal that wound: Eric's death before the eyes of all. The Empire built a stage, not in secret, but in the grand coliseum itself. The same place where Eric had once bowed. The same dust where the arrow had humiliated their champion. Now, the Empire demanded balance. The crowd was promised a duel, Varric against the human who defied him. It would be no execution, they said, but a fight, a spectacle of honor. Yet everyone knew the truth. The Empire wanted to crush the rebellion with one swing of Varric's spear. Kale warned Eric not to go. "This is their trap," he said, his voice sharp as steel. "They will surround you. They will make sure no one leaves alive." But Eric shook his head. "If I do not fight, they will call me a coward. If I run, the whispers will die." His hands trembled, but his voice was steady. "I will face him, not for myself, but for every human who thinks we cannot stand." The day of the duel arrived. The Coliseum was packed, more crowded than ever before. Aliens filled the seats, their claws tapping, their wings folding tight, their eyes fixed on the arena. They came to see blood, but beneath their hunger was unease. This was not a broken slave kneeling before death. This was a human who had already survived the impossible. Varric entered first, his body wrapped in armor of black steel. The scar across his chest glowed faintly, a reminder of the arrow. He raised his spear, and the crowd roared. Then Eric stepped forward, no armor, no shield, only a blade in his hands. He looked small compared to the champion, but his eyes burned brighter than the torches above. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar. The horns sounded, and the last duel began. Varric struck first, his spear a blur of deadly power. The ground shook where it landed, dust exploding into the air. Eric rolled aside, his blade flashing, striking sparks against the spear's shaft. The crowd gasped. The human did not fall. Blow after blow rained down. Varric's strength was endless. But Eric moved with desperation, every dodge a heartbeat away from death. He felt the weight of chains in every swing, the memory of kneeling in every step. And with each breath, he whispered to himself, "I will not bow again." Kale watched from the shadows of the stands, his bow hidden under his cloak. He had promised not to interfere, but his eyes never left the fight. Every arrow in his quiver burned with the memory of rebellion. If Eric fell, Kale knew the flame would die with him. Varric's spear finally struck true, grazing Eric's shoulder, tearing blood across his arm. The crowd roared, certain the end was near. But Eric only gritted his teeth and pushed forward. He ducked under the next swing, his blade cutting across Varric's armor. The champion staggered, shocked that the human dared to wound him. For a heartbeat, silence fell again. Then Varric laughed, a deep rumble like thunder. "Good," he growled. "You will die standing, but you will still die." He lifted his spear for the final strike. The sun caught its edge, blinding the crowd with its deadly light. And in that moment, Kale's bow sang. The arrow hissed through the air, faster than the eye could follow. It struck the base of Varric's spear, splitting the weapon in two. The crowd erupted in chaos, some screaming betrayal, others shouting in shock. Eric did not hesitate. He drove his blade forward with all his strength. It pierced the champion's chest, deeper than the first arrow ever had. Varric's roar shook the sky, then faded into silence as he collapsed. The Coliseum froze. The undefeated champion lay broken, and a human stood above him. Eric's chest rose and fell, his body shaking, but his eyes steady. He raised his blade high, not in victory for himself, but in defiance for his people. The aliens whispered in fear. If one human could slay their champion, what could many do? And in that silence, the myth of human weakness died forever. The coliseum was silent. The dust of the duel still hung in the air, glowing red beneath the fading sun. Varric, the champion who had never fallen, lay broken at Eric's feet. And for the first time in living memory, a human stood victorious before the Empire. No one cheered, no one clapped. The crowd of aliens stared in disbelief, their voices stolen by the sight. Slaves were not meant to win. Humans were not meant to stand. Yet here was Eric, bloodied, exhausted but unbowed. Slowly, the silence cracked. Whispers spread through the stands, fear mixing with awe. If one human could kill the champion, what could hundreds do? What could thousands do? The illusion of alien supremacy was broken. Guards rushed forward, but Kale's arrows cut the air, forcing them back. The hidden rebels rose from the shadows of the arena, blades drawn, eyes burning. They had chosen this moment, the fall of Varric, to reveal themselves. And as the aliens hesitated, the humans moved like a tide. For every step the guards took, two humans pushed them back. Eric raised his blade high, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We are not slaves," he shouted. "We will never bow again." The words struck like fire through the crowd. Humans chained in the stands rose, some ripping their shackles, some throwing stones. It was not an army, it was not planned, but it was real. It was rebellion. Across the city, the fires spread. The news of Varric's fall raced faster than the guards, faster than the Empire could control. From the mines, from the fields, from the dark corners where humans had been forgotten, voices rose. They killed the champion. They stood against the Empire. We are free people. The night became alive with shouts, clashes, and fire. Kale and Eric led their people into the streets. The humans fought with stolen weapons, broken chains, and sheer desperation. The aliens had machines and soldiers, but they no longer faced broken slaves. They faced a people who had seen hope with their own eyes. Every street became a battlefield, every shadow a hiding place for resistance. The Empire struck back with fury. Towers burned, ships thundered across the skies, soldiers poured into the city. But no matter how many they captured, more humans rose. For each one that fell, another took their place. And the aliens, for the first time, felt fear in their own capital. In the hidden cavern, children whispered Eric's name. To them, he was no longer a prisoner. He was a warrior, a symbol, a spark. And Kale, with his bow still warm from battle, knew this was only the beginning. "We have shown them," he said quietly, "and now the galaxy will hear." Eric stood on the broken walls of the arena as the fires of rebellion lit the horizon. He looked at the stars, remembering the chains that once bound him. "They thought humans were weak," he whispered. "They thought we were finished, but we rise." And in that moment, the future shifted. The Empire had lost its champion, and with him, its myth of invincibility. The humans were no longer shadows, no longer whispers. They were a rising storm, unstoppable, unbroken, and unbowed. The rebellion had begun, and the galaxy would never forget the day a human arrow struck down the champion. For it was not the end of story, but the first chapter of a new one. The rise of the humans,